This week, by request of my students, they've asked me to do chocolate brownies. There are lots of chocolate brownie recipes out there, and I use this one because this one works for me. And brownies, I suppose you should only be eating as a special treat for special occasions because they're extremely high in fat and they're very high in butter, and these are things that we're recommended to cut down on. So just spare this one for the occasional treat. So to start off with then, we'll go through the ingredients. So we have 185 grams of dark chocolate and 185 grams of unsalted butter. And if you cut up the butter, it makes that melting a little bit easier. It's 70% cocoa chocolate that we're using this week. That's dark chocolate. We're also going to use 275 grams of caster sugar and 3 eggs. We're going to use some vanilla essence. Then we have 85 grams of plain flour, or you can substitute gluten-free flour for a celiac, but you'll have to add in a product called xanthan gum to stabilise the whole thing. And then we have 40 grams of cocoa to add to that. Then the equipment we need, you don't need very much. You need a spoon for mixing the chocolate and butter. You need a spatula for most of the mixing, an electric whisk. Then you're going to bake them in a brownie tin, and I have lined this and I've cut into the corners so the paper sits down into the tray. And also we're going to use a saucepan with a small amount of water to melt the butter and the chocolate. You need to make sure the base of the bowl is not touching the water. So we're going to go and put this onto the hob and get that starting to melt. So we've moved over to the hob and we're letting the chocolate and the butter melt. Now I said to you to be careful not to let the base of the bowl touch the water. What really is happening here is, and my saucepan isn't great for this, so I have to be very careful that I don't let steam get from here into the bowl. If any steam or water gets into the butter or the chocolate, it will cause it to seize. And that is a fancy word saying that the chocolate will actually split and it'll turn into this grainy, fat and solid and liquid mixture. It'll be horrible. So I need to be careful not to let steam in here. So I have it on a very low temperature and I'm just going to leave this now to melt. What should be happening is that there's hot air been trapped between the top of the water and the base of the bowl, and that hot air should be enough to melt the chocolate. So that'll take about 4 or 5 minutes, and while you're leaving that to melt, you can go and do the sugar and the eggs. While the butter and chocolate are melting on the hob, you can then get on to the next bit. This is where we combine the caster sugar and the eggs. And always when you're using eggs, a safety factor is that you check the best before date so that they're in date, and secondly you check that there are no cracks or blemishes on them. So we'll go ahead and put those into the bowl and then have somewhere to put your eggshells. And then with your hand whisk, you're going to whisk we're going to put in some vanilla essence. You know I like my vanilla essence. So we're going to hand whisk this until it doubles in size and becomes into a beautiful creamy, foamy mixture. Okay, you'll know this is done when it changes colour into this beautiful creamy white coloured foam, and you can see all these air bubbles that are in it, and this is going to act as a raising agent in the brownies. So yeah, we have to be very gentle with the mixture from now on so we don't knock any of those air bubbles out of it. So we leave that to rest for a moment. We'll go now and check that our chocolate and butter is melted, and we're going to add those into the eggs. But we have to cool them a little bit first, because if we add a hot mixture in here, obviously we're going to scramble the eggs. So we need to leave time to cool the chocolate and butter. We also need to preheat the oven at this stage, so we're going to preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. So preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius, and that should be at 180 degrees when we're finished mixing up our brownies. This is almost ready now. You just need to make sure all the butter is melted and all the chocolate is melted. If this is just the picture of decadence now in a bowl, this beautiful chocolate and butter. So once it's all completely melted, you then need to take it off the heat and leave it aside for a few minutes. Or to speed this up, what you could do is put some cold water into a slightly bigger bowl and sit this bowl into it and let it cool that way. But make sure you don't let any water get into the chocolate mixture or it will seize. I've heated the chocolate and butter down to room temperature now, so we're just going to add that into the whisked eggs. And then we're gently going to mix the two of these together. Because all the air that you've created in here now, as I said, is going to act as your raising agent, so you don't want to lose any of those air bubbles. So just incorporate these two by twisting the spatula and folding the chocolate and butter into the beaten eggs. And this is a very satisfying thing to do. Okay, now this can take a few minutes. Just be patient with it, don't speed it up. Just to take a shortcut because you're going to lose all those bubbles. Now, when you get it almost combined, we're going to add in the flour and the cocoa now. Again, we're going to fold all of this together. So if you were adding in chocolate chips, or you were adding in pecan nuts or walnuts, or if you were adding in any other ingredients, you add them in at this stage. Just, I suppose, in relation to the nuts, if you were serving the brownies up at a children's birthday party or something, you need to check that none of the children have a nut allergy. But these work very well without any other ingredients. I think there's enough richness in here without adding anything else. Sometimes people like to add chopped white chocolate, and that's to improve the taste, but it's also a nice combination of the black and white. Now you need to make sure you're getting mixture right up from the bottom of the bowl. You don't want to be finding pockets of flour at the base of this when you're putting it into the baking tray. Okay, now as I say to the girls in school, if it looks this good before it's cooked, can you imagine what it's going to look like when it comes out? So we're now going to transfer this into our baking tray. So we've transferred the mixture from the bowl into the brownie tray. So I'm just spreading it out to the corners. So you want to get a nice good shape for cutting these up afterwards. Now they'll spread a little bit in the oven anyhow, and then just smooth it out. Okay, so we're now going to put these into the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. We're going to place these into the oven now, and the oven is preheated to 180 degrees. And we're going to time those for precisely 25 minutes. And I'm going to check them after that. And you need to watch them so carefully after that, because 3 minutes can make a difference between these being dry or being the correct fudgy texture. So I'm going to come back and check them in 25 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. This has been baking now for about exactly 25 minutes because I put on a timer. So you can check it visually at this stage if you just give it a shake and make sure that there's no wobbling at the top. So I'm happy enough that that's cooked. I'm going to take that out now, and we're going to leave that to cool because it's quite fragile when it's hot. And if I attempt to take it out of the tin now, it's all just going to break up into crumbs. So I'm going to let it cool, keeping its shape, and then we'll cut it up into some small pieces once it's cold, and then serve it up. We're all done. We've cut up the brownie into, you can cut it up into as many pieces as you can. We got about 12 out of it. So you can see it's beautifully cooked. You've got gorgeous spongy texture. You've got a lovely surface on the top. It's like a paper kind of texture. And I managed to achieve this by timing very accurately. Now you'll know your own oven whether it's reliable or not, and you may have to practice this once or twice, but once you get the timing right, your brownies will forever be perfect every time. So there's nothing left to do now except taste it. As if it didn't have enough sugar and goodness, you can serve it up with some fresh cream, or you could serve it up with some ice cream. So let's see if we've got a lovely fudgy texture and an ideal piece of chocolate brownie. Oh my goodness. You have to bake these to believe how absolutely delicious they are. Really, they're very, very good. Now I'm going to have to go out for a 5k run after these brownies because one would not be enough of these. They're really, really lovely. So I'd like you to have a go at making them. Don't eat them all yourself. You have to share them with your family. So join me again for our next lesson, and I hope you enjoy making your brownies, and good luck with those.